How did being an entrepreneur like change you on your journey?
Being an entrepreneur is not easy. The entrepreneur has a different type of mindset. The number one thing that you can remember and accept in life is that your friendships are going to change, and that's okay.
We started recording on our closet floors. It was not perfect. It was not organized. It was a mess, but it felt so right. So if we had waited to start until we got a studio, had the business all set up and the strategy right, like we would have never started.
A lot of people want to be an entrepreneur for the idea of what being an entrepreneur is. They kind of see what's happening online on social media. They're like, oh, you work from home or you work on the beach or it's sexy. It's not like that.
Why do you feel like most of these business marriages don't work?
If we just love each other, this will be fine, right? But then you get into the marriage and you're like, oh, this is a lot of work. The most important thing that people need to look for in relationship for entrepreneurs is
When we first started, I was so insecure about it. But I think what I realized was that as an entrepreneur, you're meant to...
if I know if I can make this much here, if you give me 40 hours a week, like watch me. Like there's no limits how much money I can make.
If you guys go do your own things, do you get jealous or competitive ever?
It's all gonna come out right now.
Young and Profiters, welcome back to the show. We've got an exciting interview in store with you today. I'm here with the hosts of the Almost 30 podcast, Krista Williams and Lindsey Simcik. Now, they started this podcast 9 years ago from their closet, and it has evolved over time. It's one of the biggest podcasters in the world. They've got a thriving online community. They've got coaching, live events. And in this episode, we're going to talk about all their different revenue streams, their work marriage, how they work together and figure out their business as two people owning this podcast. We're going to talk about your Saturn Return period. It's this transition period right before you turn 30 and how to navigate that. We're going to talk about relationships, religion, so much stuff. You guys are going to love this conversation. So without further delay, here's my amazing conversation with Krista and Lindsey. Welcome to Young and Profiting Podcast, Krista and Lindsey.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you guys.
So excited.
So as I was researching for this interview, I found out that you guys say that you're in a marriage, and you guys recently joined the App Media Network. You know that I also have a business partner, Jason. I always feel like we're married even though we're not romantically married. But talk to me about why you guys call yourself a marriage and what does that really entail?
When you're in business with your best friend, especially, there's so many layers to the dynamic. And in a marriage, as you know, when you get married, you share finances, you share just deep growth and learning in all aspects of your life. And when you become entrepreneurs as best friends, you start to share finances first and foremost, and then you get into the deep work of becoming confident, successful entrepreneurs, which requires you to really look at every aspect of yourself and every aspect of how you are in relationship. So Krista and I have been through therapy.
Oh my gosh.
We've been through coaching. We have had really, really hard conversations about finances, about, our vision for the future, about, what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
And so there have been many times where like the lines are blurred. I'm like, I kind of want to be more of your friend right now.
Yeah.
But we're in a business conversation.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So it's been something we always have to actively participate in and actively work on.
Yeah. If you think about our marriage, almost 30 is our baby.
Yeah.
So with parents, sometimes we prioritize almost 30, our baby, over our relationship. And so we're more in that role of the parents of our baby than we are as friends. And so it's sometimes felt like we've lost sight of friendship because we're so focused on the business and the growth of the business. And we also have to focus on aligning our dreams and visions for the future.
Yeah.
In a marriage, you have to continue to come back to like, where are we going? Like, how are you feeling? Where are we going? And we have to do that all the time. So whenever people want to start businesses with their best friends, I'm always like hesitant to tell them to do so because most of the time it fails when people do that. And we've been really lucky. We put in the work during the process and it's been the most beautiful relationship of my life, but it's not easy.
Wow. I love that you guys are sharing this with us because it's so interesting. Why do you feel like most of these business marriages with your best friends don't work? Like what makes you guys work?
So I think for most of us, the ideas that we were told about marriage were from Disney movies, were from media, were these ideas of marriage and relationships that are not actually real or supportive of healthy dynamics in relationships. You know, we could essentially be in an unhealthy marriage forever, she and I. But what we want for our lives is to be happy, to be fulfilled, to do something great. So now we came into our relationship, our marriage, with the idea of marriage being something where you sacrifice, you're not in alignment, you don't speak your truth, you don't ask for what you want, you know, you don't like create something amazing. And so a lot of people go in with that thought, like this will just work without work.
Yeah.
I went into my previous marriage, I was married, and I kind of had that idea, like if we just love each other, this will be fine, right? But then you get into the marriage and you're like, oh, this is a lot of work, a lot of checking in with myself, checking in with you, realigning our values. And so if you go into a business partnership without checking in on the relationship, checking in on the values, checking in on the direction of where you're going, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. You're going to build up resentment and you're probably going to end up breaking up. I think the most important thing that people need to look for in relationship for entrepreneurs is being able to communicate.
Yeah.
Just like a marriage, the number one thing in relationship is communication. You need to be talking about how you're feeling, what's coming up for you, what you want, where you want to go, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And we've really focused on our communication and communicating respectfully and with love and with intention. And that's been the biggest thing that's really kept us together.
That's so interesting. Talk to me about the communicating with love and respect. So if you guys are having a disagreement, how do you guys approach it?
Yeah, we coined this phrase called clearing conversations. So this practice where, you know, there's usually something funky in the air. We're kind of feeling like something is off. And we will schedule a walk. And a walk, because I think sitting down across from each other, staring into each other's eyes can be very intense and kind of activate the body in a way that doesn't really support honesty and flow in a conversation. Yeah. So oftentimes we'll go on a walk. We're removing our bodies. We're next to each other and we're able to kind of look at each other, but also like give each other a break. And our intention in these clearing conversations is to bring truth and respect, to be a great listener, and really, you know, have it be an experience of us against the problem rather than, you know, Krista's the issue, we got to get to the bottom of it, or I'm the issue, we got to get to the bottom of it. And that's really helped us because, you know, we all have egos. It's a thing. Yeah. And so when you approach a problem, it's easy to be like, you know, you did this to me and you made me feel this way. But in these clearing conversations, we are very intentional to use I statements. And these I statements can look like, you know, the story I'm telling myself is that, like, you know, you don't care about this part of the business and I have to take it all on by myself. And in sharing these I statements, I'm able to kind of see under the hood of like what's been turning in Krista's mind. And then I'm able to say like, oh, wow, if I believe that, I would be feeling that way too. And it just gives us, you know, an opportunity to not only share our experience, but then to listen. You know, I think both of us are really great listeners and we listen with our heart rather than our minds thinking of what to say next. So the clearing conversation, I think, is essential for any friendship, any business partnership, any marriage, as like a standard in a relationship.
So I got a chance to get to know you guys because we were doing negotiations for Yap Media. You just joined my network, which is just so exciting.
We're so excited.
Yeah, we're so excited.
And it seems like you guys wear totally different hats. Like I remember at one point, Lindsey was like, I'm going to handle the contract stuff. And, you know, you have your own stuff that you're handling. So talk to us about how you divide the labor and how you think of that with your company.
Yeah, I think getting clarity on that is really important for any, you know, business in general and for really any business partners especially. For us, the way that we delegated roles happened naturally, but happened very early on. So my experience was in the corporate. I worked in finance management consulting, and I actually was doing some brand deals on the side as a blogger. And Lindsey was an actress. She worked at SoulCycle. She was an amazing performer. She knew a lot about production. She knew a lot about performance. She brought a lot to the table from the aspects of the business of creativity that I didn't really have access to. So early on, I was like, I'm going to take on more of the business strategic part because that's where I was living before.
I actually had it backwards. You're more of the business. Got it. Okay.
And then Lindsey brought more of the creativity. So when we started building the business, it was like both of us working together, and then we sort of saw where we were fitting naturally, and we kind of claimed the domains.
Got it.
Over the years, we had to reclaim domains of like where we are and where we work, because we were trying to overlap for quite a bit, and that doesn't really support us. You know, it doesn't really help for us to both be two cooks in the kitchen. So I'm more strategy, I'm more of the partnerships, I'm more of like the overall ideas that we have that move the business forward. And Lindsey is so helpful with the creativity. She's so helpful with like the relationship with the team. Like she's a great communicator with the team. So there's just stuff that she's naturally good at that she brings to the business.
What's up, Yap fam? When I was building this business, one bad hire set us back weeks, months even, and cost way more than just money. Finding the right people fast isn't just helpful, it's essential for your business. And that's where Indeed comes in. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and get hires fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. One of the things that I love about Indeed is how it simplifies hiring. Everything is in one place. I don't waste time on candidates who aren't a good fit. When I first started this podcast, I was buried in resumes and juggling interviews, just trying to find the right people. It was overwhelming, and I wish I had used Indeed. How fast is Indeed? In the minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/profiting. Just go to Indeed.com/profiting right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/profiting. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. This episode of Young and Profiting is brought to you by Mercury, the modern business banking experience that brands like mine use to manage their finances. I remember back in the day, I used to sit down and review our company's monthly budget. I had spreadsheets open, coffee in hand, and then I'd waste 45 minutes just trying to find clear, up-to-date numbers from our bank accounts. I couldn't get a clear picture of our cash flow without having to toggle between tabs and download clunky PDFs. And that's why I realized we needed something way more smarter and efficient. That's when we made the switch to Mercury. Mercury is the go-to banking product for over 200,000 startups, small businesses, and e-commerce brands like mine, Yap Media. It's designed with a sleek interface and transparent pricing, no hidden fees, making it simple to manage your banking, capital, and credit all in one place. With Mercury, you can accept payments, send invoices, and pay vendors, plus enjoy free domestic and international USD wire transfers. You can also get instant access to virtual cards that you can track and lock to specific merchants, earning you 1.5 cash back on every single purchase. Mercury streamlines your banking and finances all in one place so you can focus on growing your online business. Mercury is a technology company, not a bank. Check our show notes for details. Deposit $5,000 or spend $5,000 using your Mercury credit card within your first 90 days to earn $250, or do both for $500 in total rewards. Learn more at mercury.com/profiting. That's mercury.com/profiting for $500 in total rewards. Mercury.com/profiting. Mercury is a financial technology company, not an FDIC-insured bank. Banking services provided by Choice Financial Group, Column NA, and Evolve Bank and Trust, members FDIC. The IO card is issued by Patriot Bank, members FDIC, pursuant to a license from MasterCard. Working capital loans provided by Mercury Lending, LLC, NMLS ID 2606284. Have you ever heard of Mind Pump, the podcast?
Yeah, love them.
Okay, so Adam Schafer came on my show.
Love them.
And it's 4 guys. They talk about fitness, health. And he was telling me that they're invested in all of their businesses together outside of just the podcast.
Wow.
So they all invest in real estate, stocks. One of them wrote a book. They all get royalties, even though they did nothing for the book. And they're just embedded in business together, no matter what the endeavor is. So how do you guys look at it? Like I saw you have like a new YouTube channel. If you guys go do your own things, how do you think about it? And do you get jealous or competitive ever?
It's all going to come out right now.
I know, honestly. I've been thinking about this.
Well, I think what's so interesting, when we started Almost 30, we were going through a very specific time in our life, and the show has evolved as we have evolved. And I think with that evolution too comes our own very unique gifts and how they want to be expressed in the world. So Krista has an incredibly successful coaching business, retreat business, and so many of her gifts that could not be truly fully expressed in Almost 30 are now being expressed through those businesses. And I'm exploring this new season of my life of motherhood and what that might look like in a community and brand sense. So thankfully, we've always just been very, very supportive of the other. I think where the conversation comes in between us is like, okay, we're in a season right now, currently in real time, of being very full on with the book and Almost 30. And candidly, I don't have a lot of energy to pour into New Mom on the Block or anything like that. And so we've had, moments where we're like, okay, we're deciding to be full on. We're going to kind of pull back on our other things a little bit and just really be focused here. And I think that's important to share kind of like what's tough about this and what you're struggling with in your own lanes of your own business. Yeah. Because I think we can create stories in our heads about like, do they want to like go pursue that fully? And like, what's going to happen with Almost 30? Or, there's just a lot of like stories we can create or meaning that we can make out of something that is not really true. So again, it all comes back to that communication around this.
And I feel like it would only benefit the business. Her succeeding or me succeeding is only benefits our business that we have together. But I think what's been really beautiful about the way that we've evolved is we've always been like sovereign. I think early on we were just doing everything together. We were so like just embedded in one another. And we kind of had moments where we're like, okay, we are aware that this could be for a season. This could be for a time period in our life. We don't want to be so naive to think that we're going to want to be in business and financial business together for the rest of our lives. So investing in each other's businesses in that way, we have put money into things together. We have made investments in businesses together that, are longstanding, but it's like, I don't think for me personally, it feels truthful for me to be embedded with one person forever, financially or dream-wise. I just like to do a lot of things. I like to create a lot of different things. I like to be my own person. I never want to be boxed in anywhere. So that type of business model wouldn't really feel good for me. Yeah. But Almost 30 has helped us as a foundation show us what we're good at and show us what our audience wants more of. For motherhood, like obviously they're going to see her. She's an amazing mother. She's built an amazing family around that. So they want more from her in that. So she's like, okay, cool. I'm noticing this thing that Almost 30 is providing for me. What can I do more of in that? Yeah. For me, it's the coaching and retreats. How can I build more of this? And so it just allows us to be more robust of who we are and evolve in the business and pour more into the business because we're happier. Yeah. If you're kind of just looking to the business to feed and satisfy every one of your creative needs or pursuits, that doesn't feel true for me. I think having creativity spark and then going kind of where it needs to go is what I like to do instead.
Yeah. I like that you guys are doing your own things outside of just Almost 30 because you have been doing this for 9 years now. Has there ever been a moment where you're like, I just don't think we can do this anymore? Was there ever like a struggling point? Because I know in entrepreneurship around like the 7-year mark gets really tough. Did you guys have a tough moment?
What's funny is we've been honest with each other about what life looks like past Almost 30. But we've never had a moment where we've been like wanting to where we fought or something happened where we wanted to throw in the towel. We've always been very conscious about where this process is. And thankfully, we have a book coming out. So the book feels like such a beautiful rounding of the 10 years we've been doing this. It's like all of our life's work. So we've really trusted that. And I think it's normal to feel like quitting, but it's actually just weird because I think that's what happens for me when I'm expressing myself creatively in other aspects of my life. And I'm not holding this relationship to be the only thing that sustains me. It's just like romantic relationships. If she's supposed to be everything to me, if Almost 30 is supposed to be everything to me, I'm not going to be satisfied. Yeah. I need other things. I need other people. I need other creative outlets. And because we've both done that, we both feel satisfied and we come back to the relationship excited to be here.
Yeah. So let's talk about how Almost 30 started because I think there's a lot of life lessons that we can learn in that in itself. So tell me about how you guys first met and came up with the idea to start the podcast.
Yeah, so we crossed paths at around 27. In our late 20s, we were going through it. The story goes that a mutual friend of ours introduced Krista and I because Krista wanted to audition for SoulCycle. SoulCycle was a very popular, trendy workout at the time. I was an instructor, and we got connected. And I remember the day we scheduled a FaceTime. Krista scheduled a FaceTime and said, I want to audition for Soul Cycle. I would love to just like pick your brain, you know, understand the process. And I was happy to do it. I was like really loving my time at Soul, and just for anyone to want to do it, I was like, yeah, it's amazing. Let's do this. So when we had our FaceTime, I was like, she's cool. Like this felt natural. This felt like flow, you know, and that didn't often happen for me. And so we stayed in touch, and through her process of auditioning, she didn't end up getting it, but it connected us. And then eventually she moved to LA, where we could see more of each other and really understand on a deeper level what each other was going through. And it was a lot. We were having relationship reckonings. We were at war with our bodies in different ways. We were running ourselves into the ground. We were, individuating from our family and some of our friend groups that, you know, we no longer really felt aligned with. It was this upheaval that felt like everything was crumbling, to be honest with you. And a lot of people go through this in their late 20s. We wrote a book about it. It's no joke. And what we found in our friendship was this comfort and just this healing and being able to talk about it. And so Krista came to me one day. We were at Bulletproof Coffee, which is a cafe.
Love Dave asked for you.
Oh, that was one of my favorite spots that unfortunately does not exist anymore.
I know.
And she was like, you know, I feel like we could start a podcast, like talking about the things that we've been talking about just on a daily basis. I was like, yeah, I'm so down. I've always been someone that if you bring me a creative project, I'm like, let's do it. And I never like really think about if it's going to be a thing. I just, if it lights me up, I'm down. So we started recording on our closet floors, sometimes in Krista's studio apartment in Venice, next to like, you know, laundry and whatever. And it was... was there a light in there? There was no oxygen. I know that.
Because it wasn't video back then.
No.
Even so when I started in 2018, no video.
No video, which was the dream.
Yeah, it was
Honestly,
so much better.
I miss that
because
so
you just
much.
got to focus on the content.
Same.
Yeah.
And you just get to rip.
Yep.
Like I really miss those
And
days.
we were on like a $15 recorder, just thinking like, okay.
Sometimes we would record on our, like the Notes app on our phone.
Yeah.
I
Just
love
have
that.
like full episodes on the Notes app on our phone. I was listening the other day to like one, and they were just, we'd have friends fake call in to the podcast and ask for advice. Like they'd be like, someone would be like, ask about this. And they'd be like, hey, I'm Lauren, I'm a listener. And they were like, not a listener. It was like someone that we paid, like the guest was like my ex and his friends. And we would just sit in these like horribly sounding conference rooms with the worst sound ever, just echoing. Everyone's all over the place and just like talk. Like it was just...
It was not perfect. It was not organized. It was very just...
mess.
It was a mess, but it felt so right. We were just kind of moving. We were being moved by the experience itself. So if we had waited to start until we got a studio and like, you know, had the business all set up and the strategy right, like we would have never started.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so as we took action, that moved us. We were like, oh, this feels good, or oh, this doesn't feel good. Then we took another step. So it was really imperative that we started before we were ready.
Yeah.
Because we got so much intel. And in 2016, September 2016, we launched the podcast.
Amazing.
It is very different than it is today, but that's the story of things.
People don't realize that you can just evolve over time. Like
Yes.
my podcast cover has changed 10 times.
Oh, I want to see
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What was the worst?
I used to have like these cartoons of me.
We had 2 seasons of cartoons.
Yeah.
2 cartoons.
It was
The one was like creepy.
Yeah, one was like alien. One, I don't even know.
Those were hot back in the day.
Yes.
Those was real innovative
Yeah.
back in the
Oh
day.
my gosh, your
Cartoon.
cartoon was probably so cute.
It was cute, but like, yeah, I had like crazy colors at one point. Just even the topic evolved. I went from careers to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And your story reminds me of Jenna Kutcher, who's also in my network. She
Yeah.
started her podcast in her car.
Yes.
Because it was the only quiet place because she had dogs and they would bark in the house. So she used to record her episodes in her car with her like Apple iPods. Same with you guys, like one of the top female podcasters in the world now, and you guys started in your closet, right? So you can evolve over time.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need perfect equipment or even a perfect idea.
I think that's what, when I work with women or any business owners, I'm oftentimes, when they're showing me everything that they're like, here's my Pinterest board. I've got the Instagram handle. I've got this like doing, and they've got all the aesthetic. And I'm like, I love you girlies. But oftentimes that's procrastination for actually doing the thing. And I'm like, you can have the full package, the perfect package. But if you don't have the audience, if you don't have the consumer, like what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
And I think I'm always someone that's a fan of building it while and getting the reactions from people. Because you're like, okay, what do people, I'm going to build it. What do you guys feel about this? Okay, cool. We're going to go here. We're going to go here. Like on the beginning of the business, people wanted to be in person. So we went on tour, we did live in-person events, and then we like evolved from there. And so rather than just like staying in your house and building something, it's like, how can you really bring it out into the world and kind of be with it as it's evolving and be okay with that process?
Yeah, get your reps in.
Yes.
So you guys were working full-time jobs when you started the podcast. How did you balance your time, and what advice do you have for other people who want to start a side hustle, podcast, whatever it is, while they're working?
I have so much respect and love. So for anyone, this is me talking to you. I love you so much that's working a full-time job and wanting to pursue your passion and your business and that thing that you're doing. Because for me and most of my life in the corporate world, I had this burning sensation and desire to do something with my life, to be creative, to create, to be my own boss, to live a life that felt different than the corporate life was giving me. And so, when I moved to Los Angeles, I had quit to pursue blogging full time. So I was like, I'm going to be a blogger full time. I had no plan, no purpose. I wasn't making money. And that obviously you don't start making money from not making money.
Yeah.
So I had to get a serving job. I was babysitting. I was nannying. I was doing odds and ends jobs at like 80 hours a week. I was like, okay, I can't do 80 hours a week and make so little. So I was like, I have to go back to the corporate world. I failed at being a blogger. I failed at doing entrepreneurship. And I was really bummed. And it took me a long time to find another job. I'd been in debt at that point, but I was like, okay, let's do this. So I got back to working in the corporate world. That's when I met Lindsey at that beginning of that point. And it was beautiful because that job in the corporate world that I worked in digital marketing not only supported me financially, but supported me in learning skills that I could apply to Almost 30, but just really was something that I'm so grateful for. I don't think I showed up as the best employee. I wasn't someone that I don't think you'd want to hire because I was so obsessed with Almost 30.
Yeah.
But it was such a beautiful aspect of what we did. But what we would do is in the morning, Lindsey and I would talk on my way to work to downtown LA in traffic. We'd plan for the day. We'd talk about things that were going on, social media, planning for the podcast. At my lunch break, I would answer Almost 30 emails. I would do Almost 30 social. We would figure out what we were doing with guests. At the end of the day, either she and I would meet and record, or we would do something related to the podcast. So it was really something that on the weekends, during the week, we were just fully immersed and focused in the business. And it was just giving us so much life. Like it was just feeding us in this way that I had never been fed before. So while I was definitely burning myself out and I wasn't very healthy at that point, it just felt really right and it felt really good. And it was sustaining me in a way, in a purpose way that I wanted so badly to be sustained in. So even though I was just going so hard, I felt this feeling that I hadn't felt ever. And I felt this drive to purpose that just felt and moved me in a way I hadn't been.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to sacrifice and work really hard, and it's just for a season.
Yes.
I also started my podcast as a side hustle. So I was working 2 years in corporate while starting this podcast. I started my company as a side hustle, and I didn't quit my job. I had 30 employees all around the world, and I still didn't quit my job.
Wow.
They did. It was during COVID, so I got away with a lot. So it was like the summer of COVID, the first summer. And I just like built this business. I was making over 6 figures a month in my agency, my social agency at first. And I still was nervous to be an entrepreneur again.
Wow.
So I didn't quit my job until like I was like really like knew that I was going to be safe and that everything would be okay. When did you guys feel like, oh my gosh, we don't need to work full-time jobs anymore? This is like really taken off. When was that moment for you guys?
We held on for 2 years. We juggled our full-time jobs with building Almost 30. And in the beginning, Krista had these existing relationships with brands because of her blog, which was amazing and really taught us how to build a working relationship with a brand and really, make it personal. And I don't think that exists as much in podcasting anymore, but it was like a beautiful time where we could talk to a brand and say like, what are your goals? How can we help you with your goals and really make it collaborative. And so after 2 years of kind of being in that flow, we were able to sustain ourselves it was scary, definitely, to quit. I think you quit in June. I quit in December. So 6 months later, I quit. And, we had a team to sustain. Like, these are things that we definitely had to plan for. And I think, we would tell anyone who's building a business on the side that not to take the leap, not to just like do it without understanding kind of the financial consequences or the risk. Because if you are focused on, surviving and like making money to support your team or, the resources, then you're probably not going to be creating in a way that feels really in flow or aligned, because you're coming from that like place of fear. Yeah. So it was important for us.
I think when I first quit my job to pursue blogging full time, I was just like, I just thought it was like cute. I was like, I'm just going to see what happens. Like, I'm going to see where the universe meets me. And then in the second part, I was like, what's cute? Like forecasting. And like seeing how much revenue we have coming in for the next 6 months and seeing how much we're spending and seeing how much I need to earn to feel good and seeing how much you need to earn. It's like, I think it really asked and called for me to step into a new level of truth and a new level of even like clarity that I didn't really give myself before. With money, I was just kind of like, I didn't want to look at it. And now I was like, how can I really see clearly what we're doing and how we want to do this and how we want to live? Because if you want to plan, you have to be able to be with money in a way that's neutral, be in a way that's loving, with money in a way that's supportive of your goals. And I think my reframe of that, of being like, this money is what's going to sustain my life. How can I look at it with respect and get really clear about what's going on rather than just like putting it to the wind. Yeah. But there was one moment I remember, we were in our full-time jobs. We got asked to speak at this event and we hosted the event the full day. And I remember the amount that they paid us to speak at one session was the same as my biweekly paycheck. And I was like, in this 1 hour, I was myself. I had so much fun. Like, I didn't have to put on, I wasn't faking it. And in the corporate world, I felt like I was faking it. I felt like I was putting on a mask every day. I felt like I had to be someone I wasn't. And I was like, I know if I can make this much here, if you give me 40 hours a week, like, watch me. Like, there's no limits how much money I can make. And so that moment for me was like the unlock where I was like, no, like, it's time.
I love that.
What was your moment?
For me?
Yeah, when you were like, it's time.
I remember that I found out I was going to be on the cover of Podcast Magazine. It was January 2021. And I was like, oh my God, like, people know me so much in my podcast that they want me to be on the cover of Podcast Magazine. And I was like, I have all these employees. The other moment was I hired my first U.S. full-time employee and she quit her job to work for me. And I was like, I gotta at least quit my job now. Like, I can't have a
out of
full-time.
respect.
So it was an amazing moment. Like, being an entrepreneur is so awesome. But to your point, it's like, knowing that you can actually sustain yourself and not just like jumping out the window. And sometimes that takes like a season of sacrifice and a season of just waking up super early and working late nights. And then, you'll be safe and like ready to go, to your point, be able to create without like all this stress because you're living paycheck to paycheck. Now, you guys have done an incredible job growing a loyal audience. Like, it's not normal to achieve the type of success that you guys have achieved in podcasting. So how do you think about your audience?
I think we've aligned this community because we were able to be so open from the get. We were ourselves, probably to a fault if you listen back to old episodes. But I don't think a lot of people were doing that back then in the podcasting space, and especially speaking to women our age who were just going through so much and feeling alone. I think we were speaking to that experience. We were speaking to the highs and the lows, and to give them the resources and the confidence to take the next step forward, I think was probably more powerful than we could ever truly comprehend. And what we found was that our ability to, be more than a podcast was very important in our growth. So what that looked like was, hosting events early on and saying like, hey, we're going to be hosting an event at the Soul Cycle in Santa Monica. We want all of our listeners in the local area to come. We would sell it out. We would hang out afterwards. And slowly but surely, this in-person effect, we started to understand the power of it, where we were able to hear their stories. We were able to hug them. We were able to really understand the impact of the show, and that would then influence the show. So they've always been a part of our success, and not in that literal sense of like, yeah, they're our listeners, they're the numbers, but it's more so they've influenced the type of content that we create. They influence, our next decision and what we want to provide for them. So they have been integral, and I think they feel that. I think they feel that in the way that we talk to them on the show, in our content.
Do you think the events help spread word of mouth? Because I feel like
huge.
Of course.
There's so much connection, even with me when I do like webinars and people are just even in that one, even though it's virtual, I feel like I get super fans. So I couldn't even imagine if I had like my listeners in a live event, like what kind of
best.
So do you feel like that really helped you guys
so much.
grow in the beginning?
I think, people, it's not like we were the first people to tour, but like it was just in 2016, 2017, 2018, it was just a different world.
Yeah.
Like podcasting really from 2020 has started to become what it is, where it's more like show-based, it's more touring.
Yeah.
And so we were touring just in this really like native way. Like it was a world tour, but it was just super native. We'd bring on guests, we'd talk to people in person, and having that in-person connection was so instrumental, not only because we could learn from them and be with them and listen to them, but it was also like created this social media moment online that was kind of growing us in a way, in a marketing way that I don't think we would have had before. And it was creating this moment for people that were almost 30, that were struggling, that were like having their time. So I think that was like instrumental to our growth. I think what we did there is what I always say with audience growth is you always want to lead and listen. So we led by being like, we're going to go on tour. And then we listened to them. Like, what do you guys want to see from us? Like, what do you want more of? You can't be fully listening all the time to your audience.
Yeah.
Because then you're not who you are. The reason why your audience is with you is because you're a leader and you are someone that is leading in culture, you are leading in whatever it is that you're an expert in. But you do have to listen to them because they're incredibly important. Like they are the reason why you exist and why you are making money in the way that you are. So it's like such a balance of just finding that balance between leading and listening with your audience so that you can stay in your sovereignty and who you are, but also really connect with them in a real and genuine way.
Yeah. I got a chance to interview Mel Robbins in person a few months ago. And she does this incredible job of making it seem on her podcast that she's only speaking to one person. And she's always telling her listeners, like, I love you. Like, you're my friend. She really cares about simplicity. And she says that if you try to act too complex or intellectual, you come off as elitist and superior. So she tries to make like everything like really simple with her audience. Is there anything in terms of like the way that you speak to your audience that you guys are really intentional about?
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we learned so much from that.
There's just small indicators that she does that creates that intimacy with people. And she's amazing, friend of the pod, like just an incredible speaker in that way. And she finds her lane and just really knows it. It's like, how can I make this simple, clear, relatable for people that's also impactful? But for me also, I'm like, that's not my style. I'm like so out there, like mentally in the way that I think. It's like, I think when people can find their lane of what's working for them and really lean in on that and really dial in on that, that's what people should do instead of like trying to be other people. But I think there's such a beauty to the simplicity. But I think what's worked for us is really staying authentic to who we are. In the moments where I was going through my divorce or in the moments where we were really struggling with various aspects of our lives. And even in our relationship, we've been really honest about it. And there's a magnetism to authenticity because you don't know what's going to happen next. It's true. There's this energy around it of truth, of happening in the moment, of relatability, of curiosity, of intention. And I think it's us just staying as authentic as we can to who we are in the moment and hoping that people can really see themselves in us and our struggle and what we're going through and find relatability in it and find inspiration where they can, but overall feel less alone.
So something that happens to me, which I think we probably have in common, is my show name will sometimes cause confusion with my audience. So people will be like,
don't get me started.
I'm too old to listen to Young and Profiting. And I'm like, no, we've got listeners of all ages. It's just young at heart. And I have to like kind of explain, or even guests will be like, well, I'm not young. And I'm like, if you've seen any of my shows, almost nobody is like under 40 years old who I interview, So it's not really about being young. But sometimes I'm like, oh man, I think my name is holding me back or is turning people off. And I often think about rebranding. Have you guys thought about that at all? Especially like as you're getting older and like, or your audience, do you worry that they're not evolving with you, or like, talk to me about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most common question that we get.
Yeah. Anytime anyone's like, what's your podcast? I'm like, I'm almost 50. What about me? I'm almost like and everyone thinks they're just as clever each time they say the joke.
So we have to laugh. We have to laugh as if it's the first time we're hearing it.
And also I bought every domain that's almost 40. Every domain, almost 40. Almost, yes, every single one.
I love that. I love that.
I'm a domain shark. It's like my pastime.
I think, we obviously did not think about it when we named the show that it would be as successful as it is and live the life that it's lived. But like you, we've just thought about it as like, this is such a metaphor. We're all almost something. And that period of being almost 30 is a foundational time to just build your relationship with change in a really healthy way. So, you don't have to be almost 30 to listen to Almost 30, but I think it is such a potent time that I hope that, especially in talking about the book now, like people will think about that time, even if they've already been through it, and see it as such an impactful, like, reckoning,
totally,
in the grand scheme of their life. But yeah, we've had moments where we're like, should we rename it? Should we totally rebrand it?
What do you think? I think about it all the time.
Yeah, what's your yes and what's your no?
I think that I will rebrand my podcast in the next year and a half, probably, even though so many know the name. But now Yap has kind of taken over, and I feel like I could just call it Yap with Hala.
Oh my gosh, that's true. Yeah,
and then that's it.
That's
so I think I'm slowly rebranding Yap. So like our logo used to say Young and Profiting, now it just says Yap Media.
Totally.
So kind of rebranding to that. I could see you guys rebranding.
I know.
You're allowed to evolve.
Yeah, totally.
You've done it for 10 years,
It's like the two things. It's like, so how do you, and this is what's hard as an entrepreneur. You're like, okay, we have almost 30. There's a whole audience of people to serve. Do we want to serve the almost 30 audience forever with the tools, research, insights, support for this pivotal time period, that we talk about in our book and that we experienced ourselves? Or is it something that we do kind of try to reach a new audience with a different name change, and it's tough?
I don't know if it's reaching a new audience. I think it's allowing your audience maybe to grow with you guys.
Yeah.
Instead, because do you feel like you're getting new audience people like in and out, or do you feel like they're just growing with you?
I don't know.
Both. I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think especially with the book, we're going to get that influx of like
definitely
kind of new actual almost 30s, people going through that time. But people have grown with us. I mean, we hear all the time, I've been with you since the beginning, and they've been through so much with us. So it's both.
Well, I feel like with podcasting, you can definitely speak to a range of people. So I feel like it's safe to say that you guys would be able to cater to people who are in their mid-20s till their early 60s and still be relevant, right?
Yeah.
The broader, the better, in my opinion.
When I have a man DM me that listens to the pod, like I'll have 50 that are like, what's your outfit or what are you wearing for, and I'm like, ignore. And then a man, I'm like, he's like, I really loved that relationship episode. I'm like, I will spend my whole day, like, just like when the unexpected people listen, it's just my dream. I'm like, oh, this is my like.
And like you, we have an age range. I feel like.
Oh, you definitely have an age range, I'm sure.
Yes.
Young and Profiters. A lot of us are renting right now, and if you haven't heard of Built yet, you're about to thank me. I wish I discovered Built sooner. I've been using it for over a year now, and I love it. With Built, you can earn your favorite airline miles and hotel points just by paying your own rent on time. Yeah, something that you'd already be doing. And if it sounds too good to be true, let me explain. There's no cost to join, and just by paying your rent, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and so much more. When you pay rent through Built, you unlock two powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every single month, no matter where you live or who your landlord is. Your rent now works for you. Second, you gain access to exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. Built's neighborhood benefits are things like extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, free mats or towels at your favorite fitness studios, and unique experiences that only Built members can access. When you're ready to travel, Built points can be converted to your favorite miles and hotel points around the world, meaning your rent can literally take you places. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, What are you waiting for? Start paying rent through Built and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbuilt.com/profiting. That's JOINBILT.com/profiting. Again, you can start paying your rent through Built and take advantage of all these different benefits. Just go to joinbuilt.com/profiting. Make sure you use our URL so they know that we sent you. Again, that's joinbuilt.com/profiting to sign up for Built today. Hey, App Fam. In today's fast-moving world, your team needs to stay connected to your customers. As my business started to grow, staying on top of customer calls and messages got so chaotic. Missed voicemails, scattered threads, and clunky systems slowed everybody down. That's why having a flexible, reliable phone system isn't optional. It's essential. Enter OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that streamlines and scales your customer communication. It works through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or using a landline. With OpenPhone, your team can share one number and collaborate on customer calls and texts like a shared inbox. That way, any teammate can pick up right where the last person left off, keeping response times faster than ever. Plus, say goodbye to voicemail. Their AI agent can be set up in minutes to handle calls after hours, answer questions, and capture leads, so you'll never miss a customer. So whether you're a one-person operation drowning in calls and texts or have a large team that needs better collaboration tools, OpenPhone is a no-brainer. Get up to speed in 2025 with OpenPhone. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/profiting. That's OPENPHONE.com/profiting. openphone.com/profiting. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Well, you guys have done such a great job. So speaking of Almost 30, you've got this new book coming out, which I loved. Thank you for giving me a copy of it.
Welcome.
So what was the idea behind this book? What did you want to share with the world?
I think we wanted to first culminate and put together everything that we've learned in the process of the rock bottom that we started at, where we met, and to building 2 sovereign, amazing lives that we love. In your late 20s, it's such a pivotal portal in time. And we realized that you're not lost, you're just becoming. And that in the process of this growth and transformation period, how can we approach it with excitement and with looking forward to the change and transformation? And I think if I would have had everything in this book when I was struggling so much with my mental health in my late 20s, I would have been so much happier. I'd be so much further in life, and I would have felt so much more at peace. You know, that age in your 20s is unhappier and more anxious and depressed than ever. People are struggling more with their mental health than ever before. People are feeling more lonely. And our goal is to help people feel less alone in their process of awakening. And so in the book, we talk about how to support yourself through times of change and transformation. And we have research from studies. We have guests that we had on the show sharing insights and inspiration. And it's just like the guidebook for anyone going through their process.
Yeah. You guys talk about this concept called Saturn Return. Now, this is a very nerdy entrepreneurship show. We usually don't get too spiritual or into astrology, but I was telling you guys, I want my listeners to learn something new. I never knew about this. So talk to us about Saturn Return.
Yeah. So when we learned about this, I mean, it unlocked everything. We were like, wait, actually, what? We were going through that, and everyone does. So the Saturn Return is an astrological transit that happens for everyone, where Saturn comes back to the place in your chart it was when you were born. And Saturn is the planet, think of it as like the dad, comes in and is like, yo, this is not working. This is not aligned. We got to look at this. We have to be truthful and honest about this and make changes. And it can feel like your life is falling apart. It can feel like everything you've known to be true is actually coming up for questioning in a really big way. So whether it's your career, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, where you want to live, what you want to do, what your purpose is, it's a very existential crisis type season. But it is also probably your greatest opportunity yet in your life to get to know yourself in a way that will be a foundation for the rest of your life. So for Krista and I, we had themes of relationships come up where, I was going through a really intense breakup and I thought I was going to marry this person. I thought I would be married by the time I was 27, have kids by the time I was 29, and then we, walk off into the sunset, whatever. And that didn't happen. And I was like, wait, so now what? who am I then? Who am I without him? Who am I if this isn't the plan? But I think what Saturn has the opportunity to show you is that, yeah, we can have a plan based on kind of how we grew up and all the things, but there is a much more expansive plan and life for you if you lean into the unknown. So it's been, it's a practice. It's a practice to be able to have faith in something that you don't know what the next step is. But I think Saturn will really teach you that is the way, that is truly the way.
And that's something that just happens like every 28, 29 years. So it's like just a few pivotal points in your life.
Yes.
Maybe just like 2 or 3.
Yeah. Hopefully 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully 3 times if you live a long
Brian
enough.
Johnson, you're 4.
I'm kind of like sad that I missed mine and I didn't know about it.
I wonder what was happening when you were 27 to 30.
I shut down my blog and got my MBA and went into corporate.
There you go.
Because I felt like I needed to grow up. I felt like, I need to grow up.
Yeah.
I need to like take care of myself.
Yep.
No
your
more
prefrontal
games.
cortex is also coming online during that time. So your prefrontal cortex is actually responsible for you making decisions like that, where you're like, I'm going to be more thoughtful. I'm going to be more strategic. I'm going to be more diplomatic about how I'm spending my time. So it's not only like the Saturn return period, but there's a lot of brain development that's happening that changes how you operate with life in the world, where you're like, okay, now with my prefrontal cortex online and becoming conscious, how am I going to approach relationships?
Yeah.
How am I going to approach my career? How am I going to approach my friendships? And there's just so much change happening that it's just can feel like a washing machine if you're not really being mindful of it and if you don't have the permission to see it as an opportunity to lead you to a better life.
Yeah. You were just talking about friendships. And I know in your book, you talk a lot about like making sure you've got the right people around you. Talk to us about your advice related to that.
Yeah, I think especially for entrepreneurs, I mean, the entrepreneur journey, in my perspective, and this could be wrong, so I was in corporate and being an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur has a different type of mindset. You have a different type of set of values and priorities. And so it can be hard actually as an entrepreneur to relate to people in the corporate world, I think. So just thinking about that for your entrepreneur audience, just really understanding that your friendships are going to change. I think the number one thing that you can remember and accept in life is that your friendships are going to change. And that's okay. I think for me, for so long, I felt so much shame that I didn't have the same 4 girlfriends that I grew up with. And it wasn't Sex and the City, and it wasn't Girls, and it wasn't like every movie that I saw where everyone was best friends with the same people for their entire lives.
Yeah.
I had friends come in and out. I had changes. I had transitions. And that actually was a good thing. That was showing how I was changing, how I was evolving, how I was prioritizing different things like not drinking or partying or my business or spirituality. And so accepting that friendships will change is number 1. I think number 2, seeing friendships as a vehicle for your growth just as deep as your romantic relationships is huge. My romantic relationships have been so powerful for me, but my friendships have been such a place for growth and support and love. And now I see my friendships as equal to my romantic relationships. They really see me, they hear me, they've been with me. And women, especially in women relationships, like the way that we can see and support one another is just like next level.
Yeah. I love that you're saying that because I know that in my 20s, when I was in relationships, I'd be the type of girl that would be like not prioritizing my friendships. I would just get sucked into my relationship. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm with him.
We all
like,
have to
I can't
do
do
that.
that, and then you lose your friendships and then you break up and then you realize like, oh crap.
Yes.
I did not do a good job being a good friend, and now I don't have any friends because I was prioritizing my boyfriend and all this kind of stuff. And now I look at my girlfriend relationships as actually sometimes more important than my romantic relationships because they'll be with me no matter what. They're not going to go fall in love with somebody else.
So they can't cheat though. They'll hang out with the other girlfriend. You're like, what are you guys doing? I'll never forget that. My mom, after getting divorced, she was like, never lose your girlfriends. She's like, your girlfriends are just so important. And I love men so much, but the texture and richness of my life has been so benefited by deep female friendships and relationships. And being an entrepreneur is not easy. Like, you meet up against limiting beliefs and mindset like setbacks all of the time. You have fear, you have overwhelm, you have stress, you're putting yourselves out there, you're doing cringe things. And so to have cheerleaders in your corner or have people that really see you and support you has kept me going 100% of the way.
And I think in the Saturn return period, for those friendships that are for the life, that lifetime vibe, they require that like update, because you're kind of working on like old patterns. You're working on like old everything. And so if you feel like you're changing, most likely your friend is changing too, but you both are holding on to how the friendship has always been. So I think with the select few in my life, I've had to just have like a come to Jesus moment of like, hey, this is actually what's important to me right now, or this is what I have capacity for. Because sometimes, for example, in friendships, you don't see each other as much, maybe because you've gotten married or maybe you've moved, maybe you don't touch base as often. And we can make so much meaning out of that. And so if you have a conversation where it's like, listen, like I would love for when we connect, like it's just really quality and we're able to be really present.
Yeah.
I think that is super, super important because I don't know about you, but anytime, I would change within a romantic relationship, my then boyfriend would be like, man, you've changed, would have such a problem with change. And then with friendships, I always felt like, oh gosh, like I can't change because then they're going to feel a type of way. So just giving people permission to change within their relationships and have actual clear conversations about it, I think is really important.
Now, for everybody tuning in, whether they're a man, I actually have a lot of male listeners.
I'm sure.
So whether they're men, women, if they're thinking about a career change, a career pivot, how should they think about it?
I think that rumbling happens for a lot of people where like you are at a job that you've been at for a while. Maybe most likely you're really good at what you do. You get rewarded for that. You are maybe on a path where you have an upward trajectory, but there's something within you that just kind of says like, I think there's something more. And I think I want to pursue something else, or, something else does light me up and I would love to see what would happen. And so I think, first of all, you have to get really clear about that. Is there an opportunity to pivot within the actual like company that you're in? Because it's maybe just a feeling of like what you're doing. Is it no longer aligned? Is there another position at the company? If it's a bit more than that and you actually want to pursue something else, which we both have done many times over, I think it's getting clear about how do I want to feel on a day-to-day basis? Like what really lights me up? Asking those like questions about the feeling part of it. Logistics will come in, but I had to get clear that like what was moving me in that direction came from like this place rather than the over-analyzing of everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when I pivoted, for example, from, pursuing my acting career to the podcast, like I had to make a conscious pivot. I could no longer do both. And I think for me, the question was like, how do you want to feel on a day-to-day basis? And I wanted to feel like I was creating literally something, but also my future. And with acting, I was waiting to be chosen. So it made it so clear that pivot was right for me to completely let go of the acting and pursue the podcast full time and let that go.
Something that you just said like really spoke to me, the fact that you were basically saying like, I'm in control now. I'm not going to wait to get chosen. And I feel like with entrepreneurship, that is such an amazing part of entrepreneurship that you get to control your life. I dealt with like a lot of rejection. I was rejected by radio and TV and satellite radio. And then I started my podcast and did great, you know? And so I'd love to hear from you of how did being an entrepreneur like change you mentally, spiritually? How did it change you on your journey?
Gosh, it changed me. It helped me become more of who I came here to be honest. It gave me the tools, it gave me the friction, it gave me the feedback to allow me to be who I came here to be. And that was someone that's using her voice, someone that's standing in her power, someone that knows what she wants, someone that's clear on where she's going, and someone that has to meet every growth edge. I feel like in the corporate world, I was just spending a lot of my time and my energy towards someone else's vision that I didn't really even align with in the first place. And I was there for money, probably out of fear of not having money or not having purpose. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're like putting all of your chips in your own, like you're putting all your eggs in your own basket, I guess. And I feel like it's really just helped develop me as a better person, because the more clear I am with my relationships within business, within my personal life, the more business I'll get mindset, the more business will grow. And it's been so powerful. You know, I couldn't see my life being any other way but self-led and self-made through entrepreneurship. And I'm so glad for it.
What about you, Lindsey?
Oh, man. To be honest, when we first started, I was so insecure about it because I didn't have a corporate background. You know, I came from being my own, I suppose, entrepreneur in my acting life, where even though I was waiting to be chosen, I was having to, you know, self-motivate every day to go on auditions, to, you know, meet agents, meet casting directors. So I had that experience within me as far as entrepreneurship goes. But when it came to the business side, I just felt so insecure. But I think what I realized was that as an entrepreneur, you're meant to really double down on your gifts, you know, and you will learn everything else along the way. You know, I've learned so much about business in just doing it and making mistakes and learning from Krista. Like, so it's been really important for me to, you know, acknowledge the insecurities around what I don't know. But actually, that's not where my focus is meant to go. You know, my focus is meant to double down on what I'm really good at and really step in there, because especially in a partnership, you know, we've come together so well like a puzzle where like my strengths are something that like fit perfectly in the puzzle. And then Krista fills in her strengths where I'm kind of like lacking. So it's been really, really beautiful. But entrepreneurship has given me just a lot of confidence in every aspect of my life. You know, I think when I think about starting over in any way, I think about almost 30. You know, I just always reference that experience of just building something from nothing, building it from an idea. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it really adds to that like well of confidence that you have for the rest of your life.
I love that.
So one of my last questions for you guys, if somebody is almost an entrepreneur, they have the idea of becoming an entrepreneur, they're in this transition period, they might be working a corporate job. What is your advice to how they should treat this period and their next steps?
This is my personal belief, but I feel like a lot of people want to be an entrepreneur for the idea of what being an entrepreneur is. They kind of see what's happening online on social media. They're like, oh, you work from home or you work on the beach or it's sexy. Like there's a lot of entrepreneurship, I think especially too earlier in the previous times that was like girl bossy and made everything really, really sexy and fun and like really Instagrammy and marketing. And it's not like that. It's the most challenging thing that you'll do. And it has made me so insecure at times and so low at times and so unsure of myself at times. But it's also been so powerful. So I would check first, like, what is the actual desire? Because I think entrepreneurship doesn't happen. I think your creativity and your idea happens. I think you build what you want to do. You become who you want to be. You create what you're here to do. And then you become an entrepreneur. So I think it should be led by something that comes internally, like something that you feel like has to exist in the world. So I think waiting until you have that like calling, that like desire,
like
that
you feel
thing,
it in your gut.
Yes, you're like, this needs to exist. I need to create this thing because it doesn't exist. And I feel like my life sucks without it. My life isn't as good without it. So I think waiting until you're so called that the things that come up and the how of it all just goes away. So when your why is so strong, your how just doesn't even matter how it happens. Like our passion and obsession with our connection and really finding this reason to help people feel less alone drove us to like stay up late at night, invest money in, take the risk. And so what I would say is find that thing or wait for that thing or look intently at the world a little differently with a different lens to see what is needed and then create that.
Any thoughts, Lindsey?
Yeah, I think, your business that you start will be your mirror. And so it's I think, imperative from the get to understand that this will bring up a lot about you and what you are bringing to the table. And so for me, it's about having a therapist, having like resources and tools so that I can come to each moment as aware and as conscious as possible. It's not always going to be perfect, but how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I think with a business, for me, it was showing me where I could really step into my worth. It was showing me, how I could become a better communicator in all aspects of my life. So I think to be prepared for that and maybe even set yourself up by having a coach or a therapist from the get. I know it's an investment, but it's like the most worthwhile investment I've ever made and helps me both in business and personal.
Yeah, it's a good one. What would you say?
So somebody's about to become an entrepreneur. I really like your advice of like, why are you doing this? Is it because you just want to make money? Is it because you feel like being an entrepreneur has like some clout with it? I feel like you need to really understand if you have a good business idea.
Yeah.
So like for me, the big thing is like, can you make money? Can you get customers? Will people pay for this thing? Because a lot of people have these ideas that nobody wants. And I see that time and time again.
Yes.
I remember one time somebody was like on a webinar with me and she was talking about how she's like building an app so that like you can like something about like naming your star sign or something like this. And it was such like a far out there idea. Maybe it's because I'm not into astrology or whatever it is. But to me, I was like, okay, is that something that you want or that other people want? And so for me, it's about channeling demand, not trying to create demand. So find something that people already have a problem with, like in a lot of people, and a problem where you know how to find these people. Like they label themselves something. They're all hanging out in the same places. They have the same titles. They've gone to the same schools or they work at the same places. Because then your job is easy. You just find those people that have that problem and you sell to them. But I find time and time again, people have solutions to problems that don't exist, or their customers are like far, like you can't find any customers. So I just feel like you have to know that your customers exist and that they actually have a problem that they're willing to spend their money on. And this solution also has to somehow increase their status in some way. Because people just buy based on increasing their status, whatever it is. They make every decision based on if it's going to increase my status or not. So is it going to improve my wealth? Is it going to make, are people going to think more highly of me if I have this thing or if I fix this problem, right? So it's all based on status. So it's how does it impact their status?
Wow. Interesting.
People are great. I just sometimes I'm like, wow. We're doing that. I do that, of course.
Totally.
I'm doing stuff like that. But it's like
beauty, it's the health.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow.
Yes.
Okay. So my last question that I ask all of my guests, and you can just answer from your heart. You both can answer each one. So what is one actionable thing our young and profiters can do today to become more profitable? Let's go with the business mind first.
I think to become more profitable, a book that I love that I recommend is called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. Have you read that? It's really, really good about the relationship you can have to money and the energetics of money. And it's been incredibly profound and transformative for me. I think when you think about becoming more profitable, there's so many different aspects of it related to your business. But if the foundational relationship you have to the energetics of money isn't there, you're never going to become more profitable. So getting your relationship right, the energetic frequency and the connection you have with money is going to be incredibly helpful. When I could finally meet money and respect and love money in the way that I do, I'm so grateful for the way money moves in my life. I'm so grateful for the way money gives me freedom, for the way money supports my health, for the way money supports my family. Like I have so much respect and love for money. So money loves to work with me. Money loves to be around me. Money loves to hang out with me. Money loves to move through me. And once you can have that, you can really see how money can move more in your business.
Can we actually stick on this for a little bit?
Yeah.
I feel like I have like an incredible relationship with money. Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, how do people not make money? Like, I feel like I just attract money left and right?
Yes.
Like,
where do you think that comes from?
My dad, so I grew up, my dad was a surgeon, but he grew up super poor. So my dad grew up in Palestine. I'm Palestinian. So he grew up with like no running water. Like he was dirt poor. He became a surgeon. And then when I was growing up, he never wanted me to feel like money was an obstacle because it was for him.
Sure.
So like if I wanted to buy anything, like even if it was like, you know, I remember one time he bought me like $1,000 Furby, you know, like QVC when it was really popular.
Totally. Dream.
You know? And he spent $1,000 to get me this Furby. And he would just always make it his phrase was like, if something was $100, he'd be like, oh, that's free.
I'm obsessed.
And he would always just tell me,
Wow.
that's free. Oh, Dad, can I have this money? Oh, sure, no problem. So he made me feel like money was just so easy.
Wow.
And so my whole life, I just thought money is easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now I just make a lot of money like all the time, you know, like we just like have these huge deals. And then sometimes I think when people like make such little money, I'm like, how are they making such little money, you know?
Wow.
So I have a really good, but I have, you know, bad relationships with other things. You know what I'm saying? So like money just happens to be good for me. But talk to me about your relationship with money. And I think a lot of people have like things with money in terms of their beliefs.
Oh, yeah. I
course.
mean, it's so much. It's the hierarchy of money. Money means worth. Money means safety. Money means security. Money means you're bad. Like if we look at the media programming, a lot of the media programming, the villains are rich. So we have this idea that having money is bad. Jesus had no money. You know, like the gurus and the saints and the kind of the cultural leaders from a religious perspective were usually poor. So we have this embedded idea around money and the relationship to money in our lives. And I think so many of us have grown up with money as shameful. You don't talk about it. You don't talk about money. You don't talk about sex. You don't talk about religion. So not only are we not talking about it, but we're living in a society that's telling us that money is bad. But yet all the people at the top are figuring out ways to get money. So I think when we can really take our power back and have a beautiful relationship with money, money actually isn't anything. It's like paper.
Yeah.
So we're actually placing all this energy and value and thought and meaning to paper. So like can we take the power back and be like, this is a tool for me to live my life in the way that I want. This is something I deserve. This is something that like I can move through me energetically and become something that can be supportive of the life that I want.
And I think so many people take what they learned or did not learn when they were younger from their parents and kind of use it as like an excuse not to rewrite their relationship with money. So it's like, my parents never taught me about, this is something I've done. My parents, I'm like,
You're
my
like
parents, this girl, my parents never taught me about balancing my checkbook or like how to manage money or how to invest or how to work with a credit card. Like never, none of that. And there was always stress around money. There was always like fights were started over money, always. So I really had this like, you know, stiff arm approach to money where I'm like, money's over here. I don't really want to look at it. I don't really want to talk about it. I've had like very, very abundant times in my life. And usually that's because I am not making money or I'm not connecting money to my worth. And I am just living in a way that's like incredibly aligned. I'm using my gifts. And that's usually when I have a lot of money coming in. But any period of time where I've literally held money as like, I'm going to feel okay today if I have this amount in my bank account, it's evaded me at all costs. So it's just really interesting. Like Krista said, the relationship with money on an energetic level, I think is important, but also looking at where did your money story come from?
Yeah.
You know, just being really honest about it and knowing that you can rewrite it right now.
Yeah.
Like in this moment, you can start rewriting it. You don't have like, you know, the like scarlet letter on you for the rest of your life. You can absolutely rewrite this. And I think for me, it helped to understand why my parents had the beliefs that they did. I just had more compassion. I didn't have as much resentment towards them. So I just think it's so important that we kind of detangle that before we rewrite the
we
new.
talk about that in the book because, I mean, especially in your late 20s, like 60% of people have student debt. You start to make more money in your late 20s. You're changing jobs. Like a lot of people are getting married for the first time. They're having children. So there's so many different financial things that are happening to people during that time. So I think for me, the rebel part of me is always like, I just want to somehow take the power back from the system and like figure out how to like live my life outside of it, live my life freely. And it doesn't mean I'm like buying a yacht or a private jet. It means like I'm living in a way that feels luxurious and free to me, that feels expansive to me. And I want that for everyone. Like we all humans deserve that. And the more we can break outside of the systems that we're in and really see, first of all, our inherent worth for money, then money comes to us, like what you have already.
I love that.
I love your dad.
Yeah, my dad was awesome. He was also really generous. So taught me that too. Like he would spend all his money just like sending kids to college. Like
there you go.
You know what I mean? So I got both, like being super generous and then getting the money, right?
That is so
powerful.
beautiful.
How about you? What is one actionable thing our young and profiters can do to become more profitable tomorrow?
I think it's about relationships. So, you know, in terms of your audience, your customer, like how can you become even more human with them, even more connected to them? And oftentimes that means vulnerability from you as the founder, or more vulnerability in the intention or the process and creating the product. It could come in different forms, but I think that vulnerable storytelling and that honesty is something that differentiates you, and I think really makes people buy in. You know, they want to support a brand or a product that has a story. I do. You know, and because I just think in this day and age, there's so many things that we can buy. There's so many things we can invest in. And it's like, at a point, it just kind of hurts. You're just like, okay, there's just so much stuff. But when I find a brand where the story is just so impactful and so moving, I'm like, I want to support that. Let me put my dollars there. So I think bringing in more storytelling about your story or just the path of creating this product, I think could be really profound.
I also something that you said really spoke to me, and that was caring about your customers. I don't remember who told me this, but they were saying like you've got to like love your customers because if you love them, they'll feel that love, and people refer something based on what it's going to make them look like. They'll refer you and put their own brand reputation on the line, and they'll only do that if they feel like they love you so much that they're willing to put their reputation on the line. And they'll only feel that way if you actually love and really care about your clients.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know what I mean? So you really need to like care about your clients, love your clients, think about them. How can you do the best job possible no matter what you sell or what you do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Okay. This is really fun.
Thank
you guys for joining us.
We're in a little portal.
I know.
I know. Okay. What is your secret to profiting in life? And this can go beyond business.
Prayer and God. That's just my vibe. I feel like having a spiritual foundation or having a foundation of like an anchor point for my life has just been exponentially beneficial to all my relationships, to the way that I move, to what I prioritize, to what I want to create. And I feel like, you know, it might not be for everyone, but for me, it's been what's really given me abundance in ways that are not just financial, but spiritual and meaningful in my life.
Were you always religious?
So I grew up Catholic. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. And so it was very religious. It was very conservative. And I kind of lost my way. You know, I was like nihilistic for a while. I was like just figuring things out. And I kind of refound my faith, you know, in the past couple years, probably 5, 6, 7 years. And it doesn't mean that it's religiously attached or connotated. You know, I wouldn't say that I'm attached to any religion, but it's something that feels like really perfect for my algorithm, perfect for my type of spirituality and the way that I move. But yeah, I grew up religious and had to refine it.
How did you, I'm asking personally, because I'm not connected to any religion personally, but I always think, oh my gosh, I really want to have religion. So what did you do to get connected to your spirituality?
I think I had a rock bottom humbling event. I think, you know, Lindsey and I both had this moment of humbling. And then we also had an amazing coach that we worked with that brought God back into our life in a way that was very offering and helped us metabolize the idea of just sort of naming the creator, naming this infinite source of love and support, and helping me reapproach God in a way where it wasn't a man in the sky that was punishing me or had this idea of how I should live or hated me if I did this and didn't like me if I did this. It was like, what if there was this benevolent co-creator of life that you had, that loved you endlessly and that was there for you endlessly, and that was just a guiding partner for everything that you do. And so there was a lot of my spiritual practice and process that kind of led to this. I had done so much energy work. I had done so much study of different religions and spirituality through the podcast. But it was really that coach in a rock bottom moment that was like, you know what? I give up all of this to like one creator. And that's sort of how I'm going to build my foundation. I still do a lot of different spiritual tools and practices. I'm very open, but having the anchor is like the most supportive for me.
I find that almost every successful person that I meet is grounded in that way.
I've actually, that's crazy because I've noticed that too.
Yes.
The people that I see at the level that I want to be, they're anchored. Because you could get blown in the wind. You could go fall for this, fall for that, like there's a lot of things here that could pull you off of your path and your truth. And having just something where I'm like, okay, what am I working towards? Who am I working with? What are like my guiding principles for how I want to live? And it just helped so much.
Yeah, I have to second it. I'll be boring inside me too. It's been, I had obviously a similar experience with Krista with our coach, but my now husband also came into my life around that same time, a little bit after. And he's also brought that aspect of faith into my life, and to be able to connect so intimately on faith with someone that you love in that way was something I've never experienced, and just kind of opens up this whole realm of possibility when it comes to, just being a human on earth. You know, it's like we don't have to shoulder everything. You know, I think that's what I saw growing up. I saw my parents shouldering everything. Even though my mom was, spiritual, like they just shouldered so much. And now, it's just like my greatest joy to be able to like just give things up to God and just be like, I trust you, like I don't know what's next, but I trust you and thank you. And there's just this like, there's this experience of gratitude in my life now that I feel so much more than I ever have before. And I think that's been the fuel, because even when things are hard and I'm like, man, this is like a really hard season, I'm always just like, but I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this, like this pruning season, this just like, I know you're working on me and I trust it. And so, I think for me, someone who does take on a lot and can overanalyze things, it's been the greatest gift to just be like, God, I totally trust you. Like,
that's so beautiful. You guys are inspiring me.
Yeah. And it can look like the way you want it to look. I think we think of, and honestly, let's just say we name God in the book. We say God and we say like, you call it whatever you want to call it, but it was actually a choice.
I know there's a lot of names people have for God, and it could be really triggering. I think people have a lot of religious deprogramming that I think we kind of have to do as a culture and society. But I reclaimed God in a way that feels a little rebellious to the way that I was like taken away from God through religion.
Yes.
Do you mean like when people say like source energy and stuff like that?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, source energy works. I think whatever works for people, that gets them anchored in there. For me, I just felt like God was presented as something that was not loving and was not the way that I wanted. And for me to be like, actually, it's not, that's the church. That's man. What you're talking about is man. What my God is all loving. My God is all knowing. My God is with me. So it's like, oh, actually, I was kind of looking at it through this religious lens that like, I don't.
Yes.
And you have to unlearn that.
Yes. Yeah. How do you see it?
How do I say? Well, that's how I feel. I feel like God is really loving. I feel like there is something out there. I grew up Muslim. So, but I don't feel like aligned to that religion. But I think it's primarily because I just don't really understand Arabic. So I didn't understand anything.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And so like I always connected with Christianity more because all my boyfriends were Christian and I'd go to church and understand what was going on. So I think it's just more of like, because it's all the same stories. It's really, really similar. So I think it's just a matter of feeling connected just because I can actually understand it, if that makes sense. And I know there's translations and stuff, but still like you pray in Arabic and I don't understand what I'm saying. So it's just, it's hard to feel connected if you don't understand what you're saying.
For sure. So 100%.
So that's something I'm looking forward to exploring.
There's a book called Secrets of Divine Love.
I'm almost Christian.
And it's like, I know, literally. She's
Sorry,
like,
Mom.
so my religion is.
Sorry, Mom. Don't be mad at me.
Yeah.
This was so fun, guys. Thank you guys so
fun.
much for joining us.
Thank
you did
you.
such a great job. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Well, Yap Gang, we're closing out today's episode with so much to reflect on thanks to Krista and Lindsey. We talked a lot about that special kind of transformation that happens when you stop waiting to be chosen and start building a future on purpose. For many of us, that pivot happens when we're in our late 20s or early 30s. That's when, for example, I decided to shut down my blog, get an MBA, enter the corporate world, and get more serious about achieving the future that I really wanted. As Krista pointed out, it's not just an emotional shift that happens during those years. It's actually biological. It's our fully developed prefrontal cortex making us more strategic, intentional, and future-focused. But it still takes a lot of courage to pivot, to stop waiting to be chosen and instead choose yourself. Lindsey's story about leaving acting to pursue podcasting full-time reminded us that the most important question isn't what you do, but how you want to feel doing it. For her, the answer was simple. I wanted to create. Striking out on your own takes time, though, and it can be a rough ride. Like Krista said, being an entrepreneur or running a business can look sexy from the outside, but getting started will probably be the hardest thing you ever do in your life. Entrepreneurship isn't glamorous. It's hard, humbling, and deeply personal. But when your idea is rooted in purpose and your why, when you feel that something is missing from the world and you just have to create it, that's when you're ready to get started. So whatever age you are right now, if you're in that in-between space between identities and careers, let this episode be a reminder. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you do have to listen for that internal pull. And when it comes, be ready to follow it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Young and Profiting. If you learned something today, and if you felt seen or inspired, share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to the show. Your reviews help us reach more listeners who are ready to profit from powerful conversations like this one. If you want to check us out on YouTube and watch our episodes on video, all of our episodes are on YouTube. Just search Young and Profiting. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Yap with Hala or LinkedIn. Just search for my name. It's Hala Taha. And my Yap team is absolutely amazing. I cannot go an episode without thanking them. So thank you guys for all your hard work and dedication. It really shows. This is your host, Hala Taha, aka the Podcast Princess, signing off.